It is considered fashionable not to lecture. And lecture is vanishing. So therefore I will critically examine this, but there will be several related things related to being a teacher that will come into this. I call this vanishing because today the trend is to consider lecture not necessary. I called it art because lecture cannot be done well if you just know what to do. Lecture is an art. It comes from the heart. If it doesn't come from the heart, it is not going to be art. Unless you do a lecture with your heart in it. If you remember the teachers who left you with your hearts thumping, there were very few of them. Most lectures felt you with a feeling, we have had enough. So I am going to share that, and I'm going to share with you, to begin with, a quote. Most people get tired of lectures in 10 minutes. It happens, all of us. You may not show it, but because you are kind, you are very polite, you may sit quietly and tolerate it. In 10 minutes, most people are tired of lectures. If you are very clever, you can become tired in 5 minutes. And the most sensible people are those who never ever go to a lecture. It is true. Unfortunately, we have to attend lectures for various reasons. Compulsions require you to be there. For example, today, something required you to be here. Otherwise, given a choice, you won't come here. Having said that, I am here to look at what we as teachers, each one of us today as teachers, what we can do to resurrect, to revive, to reactivate lecturing, so that the students who listen will look forward, never detest lectures. It is in that context I am presenting this. I am going to share a few thoughts with you, which I humbly present before you. The lecture, by definition, I am going to give you a definition now, is uninterrupted, rambling exposition of apparently irrelevant, trivial information delivered in a sleep-inducing monotone for 1 hour. Most of us have experienced this. It is uninterrupted. You start a lecture and say, don't interrupt me, because when you interrupt me, I will lose the continuity of my thinking. So it is often uninterrupted. You ramble and talk about trivial things which doesn't concern anybody. You don't know why you are sitting there and listening. Trivial things. And then you deliver it in a most boring way. At the end of it, you feel we had enough. So this is actually written by someone who suffered. Suffered because of lecturers. At the end of it, the one good thing that came out was that definition. This is something that we have to remember. This is what actually happens, all of us have experienced. Now, when you look at all the teachers who taught you, the lecturers who taught you, we can broadly classify them into one of three. One I call the confusion master, the obfuscator. He knows a lot. At the end of it, you get confused. What is he talking about? Obfuscator. His intention is not to confuse you. He is well read, well qualified, well experienced. But when he spoke, you got confused. He didn't know how to present it in an easily understandable way. Obfuscator, not his fault. His communication skills were faulty. Then comes the regurgitator. I faithfully vomit whatever I know. Many teachers do that. Simply regurgitate. Who wants this? The student says, I know all this. It's all available everywhere. Why are you coming and wasting our time? Regurgitator. Then comes the so-called good teacher. I use the word facilitator. Basically, we facilitate learning. We allow you to learn. So can we gravitate towards facilitation? Let us avoid being obfuscators. Let us avoid being regurgitators. Let us look at the vanishing art of lecturing this session under three main headings. One is lecturalgia. Myalgia is muscle pain. Arthralgia is joint pain. Lecturalgia is pain resulting from listening to lectures. It will happen to you now. will then look at indications. What are the indications for lecturing? And then we look at lecture method critically, closely, carefully, so that when we next give a lecture, we will think 100 times how to give. Let's start with lecturology, a painful lecture. Painful for whom? Not necessarily. Sometimes it can be painful for the person who gives it, but most often people who receive the lecture have pain. And this is not a term I introduced. It has been in the literature since 2001. And it says it's a disease experienced by members of lecture to all of us have experienced this. What are the symptoms and signs? Symptoms are very simple: agitation, frustration, anger. But very often you cannot show this because some risk is involved. If you show your agitation and frustration and anger, there could be some risk involved in the examination that follows. So you keep quiet. You are very kind. Then comes suppressed emotions, apathy and somnolence. You get disconnected. You come and sit there physically, mentally you are not there. Apathy. Some sleep. The single most effective impact of a lecture is sleep. Nothing else. Most of the time, I tell you, we have caused more sleep than any of the soporifics, any of the sleep producing. If somebody is having insomnia, you prescribe sleep. Sleeping medicine. But no soporifics, no sedatives are needed. I always say, if you cannot sleep, listen to a lecture. You will fall asleep. The most effective way to put people to sleep is the lecture. We have always heard this. We talk during sleep when you are disturbed. But have you heard of sleep during talk? It happens during lecture. Sleep during talk, most effective, and all of us are responsible for it. Having said that, let us see why lecturology happens. Lecture objectives were unclear, lecture is disorganized, too much too fast. In our effort to give everything to our students, we deliver it too fast. The student is not able to absorb. And then